Alrighty, so all the Saturday game have just concluded. Actually, it concluded about an hour and a half ago because during that time I had to watch some of the condensed highlight of the games that I missed during this Saturday day action, which I didn't really miss a lot of Saturday's game. I think I only missed like 3 or 4 of them, so that's pretty good, the fact that I was able to watch as much soccer as I can. And by the way, I'm wearing Minnesota again because I'm going to be talking about the Blues Not Derby a little bit in the video, and a sneak peek of this derby is that, yeah, it was not close at all, and as a Loons fan, I was pretty happy with how the team plays, but also as a Quakes fan, I was absolutely embarrassed of how the team played tonight. But we'll get to that once we get into that part of the preview. But we start off with the first game to talk about, which is New England and Chicago, which both of them play to a 1-1 draw, but in many ways, New England should have won this game. First half, Fagundes missed an absolute sitter in the 8th minute, and missing chances for New England will be a theme in this game. But eventually they did bury one, and at the 28th minute, Adam Buxaw scores from By, which is his first ever MLS goal. That is Adam Buxaw to give New England a 1-0 lead. But then 2 minutes later, it looked like Chicago almost equalized when Fabian Herbert puts a nice shot that unfortunately was robbed by Brad Knighton. And then in the second half, Gustavo Bo missed a one-on-one chance that could have given New England a 2-0 lead. And New England just really squandered a bunch of chances to kill the game off. And it would come back to haunt them, because in the 70th minute, Jonathan Bronstein scored a rare goal from Mihailovic to tie the game up at 1 apiece. And the reason why I say he scored a rare goal is because he doesn't score a lot of goals as a defender. So the game was tied up at 1 apiece. Adam Buxaw almost gave the host the lead back when his shot was clear off the line by Fabian Herbert. And then in the last 14 minutes of the game, I thought both teams had chances to go ahead in this game. And in the 94th minute, just as the final whistle was blown, Tyler Reddick, who was wide open in the box, and he actually got a pass, I forgot who exactly it was, but he got a pass right at the center, and all he had to do was basically tapped it in from 4 yards out. Instead, what did he do? Skies it over the bar. This is the second week in a row that New England had just probably the most easiest chances to convert. Last week, it was Tajon Buchanan that basically hits the post when he basically had an empty net and a header to hit at from 3 yards out. This week, it's Tyler Reddick missed an absolute tap-in from 4 yards out. And because of that, the game, of course, remains at 1-1. And that moments after that happened, in fact, seconds after that missed chance happened, that was the full-time whistle of this game, as New England only able to get a point out of this game against the Chicago Fire. And in terms of the shots in this game, both teams had 15 shots, 4 shots on goal compared to 6 that Chicago has, 5 shots off target compared to 3 that Chicago has. Both teams had 6 shots that was blocked, and possession-wise, 45% possession compared to 55% possession that Chicago has. And again, New England, if they would have put away their chances, they could have got 3 points in this game, but because they didn't, they only got a point out of this. And as for the Chicago Fire, you know, they also themselves kind of had a couple of missed chances, but they, at times, I thought they were kind of second best. So the fact that they were able to get a point out, despite the fact that at times they looked like they were the second best, they'll probably be happy with that. So yeah, we move on in terms of the next match, which is another match that was very similar to this one, where the host has a bunch of chances, but they weren't able to put away, and they have to get a point out of it. But in RSL case, yeah, not only they got a bunch of chances in this game, but there was times at this game it looked like they were just snake bit. Now, in the first half, the Red Bulls actually started the better team in the first 10 minutes and had more of the chances, and they were rewarded of that in the 12th minute when Caceres Jr. scores an absolute golazo to give the Red Bulls a 1-0 lead. I forgot to even put right next to Caceres Jr. name that this could be a nomination for Goal of the Week, because it was just a lovely hit that he has from about 28 yards out. And that gives the Red Bulls a 1-0 lead. Now, RSL started to take control after that, and this is where the bad luck for RSL begins. Because in the 29th minute, Nick Beasler hits the post, and then as that one bounced right back into the box, and on the rebound, Damar Kreilach had his second effort, clears off the line by Duncan. But that won't be the last time that RSL had a shot clear off the line, and probably their fans asking how in the world did we not tie the game up with that chances, because just 6 minutes later, Corey Bear also had a shot clear off the line, and this time it was Sean Davis, the player to clear off the line for the Red Bulls. And somehow, in some way, despite all the chances that RSL had, the Red Bulls head to halftime with a 1-0 lead. And the bad luck would continue in the second half, because in the 48th minute, Unoha would miss a point-blank effort that, I will say this, it was a good save from David Janssen to make it, but in some way, Unoha, when he was about 6 yards out, the fact that he has hit it straight to David Janssen, you probably feel like, it's a combination of a good save, but it's also a combination of you just cannot hit it straight to the goalkeeper if you are just 4 yards out, and that he had space to basically tap that one in. And then in the 70th minute, it looked like the bad luck and the snake bit situation that RSL was in throughout the game was finally come to an end when Douglas Martinez was able to score on a header. The problem is, when he basically had that ball in, as he was heading that ball, it unfortunately touched his arm. And this does happen at times when you see players decide to head the ball in, and that sometimes when they try to head it in, it hits their arm. I'm kind of surprised it doesn't happen more often, but I guess maybe that's because when players decided to head the ball, they usually, when they jump up, they usually got to make sure that their arms comes down once they connect their neck muscle to the ball to head it in, because if they don't leave their hands down and when they try to head the ball, most likely that is going to be or that ball is going to hit their hand. And in this case, Douglas Martinez, he never let his hand down as he was trying to head it in, and that ball unfortunately bounced off his arm, and that was the correct call in terms of being handball, because you just cannot hit a header or shoot a ball into the back of the net with the handle of your hands. So the game remains at 1-0, and I really thought the Red Bulls was just holding on for dear life. Like, I think the entire second half they were basically just holding on for dear life, and they came very close to just commit daylight robbery at the Riot by getting all 3 points. But in the 91st minute, Kreilach scores from Herrera to tie the game up at 1 apiece. And I like how Damar Kreilach, instead of him celebrating the fact that his team finally was able to break the curse of not being able to score a goal despite tons of chances, he immediately grabbed the ball and tell his guys that, they have another one left in them. But unfortunately, RSL didn't have another one left in them, and they unfortunately have to settle in this 1-1 draw against the Red Bulls. Shots in this game, 21 shots compared to 4 that the Red Bulls had, 6 shots on goal compared to 2 that the Red Bulls had, 11 shots off target compared to 1 that the Red Bulls had, 4 shots that was blocked compared to 1 that the Red Bull has, and RSL had 64% possession compared to 36% possession. And despite the fact that clearly RSL just dominates every category and that it's not even close in terms of the stats, the inability to finish and the fact that RSL was a little bit snake bit in this game was the reason why they weren't able to get all 3 points, and that I think their fans is going to be very frustrating with the way that, with all those chances they had, they couldn't get all 3 points in this game, and they only were able to score a goal to tie this game up. But if you're a Red Bulls fan, I mean, I guess you'd be a little bit disappointed that you didn't get all 3 points and couldn't quite hold on in the end without conceding a goal. But at the same time, you kind of also say that they stole this point. Like, just not only looking at the stats, but looking at how the game goes on and how they was just holding on for dear life, they absolutely stole a point out of this game, and they probably shouldn't deserve anything out of this if it wasn't for a combination of bad luck from from RSL in terms of finishing, and some heroic defending from the Red Bulls throughout this game. But moving on, in terms of the next match, is Dallas. And Montreal plays to an entertaining 2-2 draw, and most of the action actually happened in the second half. But in the first half, Dallas had a chance to get the opening goal. Clement Dia robbed Fiera in terms of Jesus Ferreira chances to potentially give Dallas a 1-0 lead. Dallas had a lot of chances in the first half, but unfortunately they weren't able to put away, which sounds very similar to what happened last week when they had tons of chances against the Union in the first half, but they weren't able to put it away. Now, in the second half, once again, Dallas had chances to potentially get a goal, and Montreal was doing their usual park the bus kind of thing to maybe get something out of this game. But instead of Dallas potentially break down this Montreal park the bus strategy, it was Montreal themselves scoring the opening goal, and it would be none other than former FC Dallas player Maxi Urruti, who comes back and haunt his former team when he scored from Okwanko to give Montreal a 1-0 lead. 9 minutes later, guess who it is? Urruti once again haunting his team by scoring the second goal. And, you know, in many ways, I think he got very lucky here because it took a couple of deflection off of the Dallas defender, and somehow it just found it right to Urruti, who basically just tapped that one in to give Montreal a 2-0 lead. And I thought Dallas was kind of in real trouble. And to be fair, despite the fact that Dallas kind of dominated majority of this game, I didn't think they played well in this one, and they definitely did not play as well as they did against the Union. But they did get one back when the Cobra, Zdeněk Odrančić, scores from Reggie Canyon and Thiago Santos to give Dallas one back. Dallas pushed hard for the equalizer, and just as they thought that they weren't able to do that, in the 96th minute, literally the last kick of the game, Ricardo Pepi scores from Zdeněk Odrančić, and that is the first ever MLS goal for this young kid, Ricardo Pepi, who is considered one of the most talented and probably one of the most upcoming prospects out of this Dallas academy. Scored tons of goals with their affiliate team, North Texas SC, last year. And yeah, what a moment for this kid to finally score his first ever goal. And I also think that not only he scored his first ever goal and that give Dallas the equalizer, but I bet a lot of Dallas fans was absolutely thrilled seeing him score a goal, because a lot of Dallas fans love Ricardo Pepi and they think that he could really be the next best thing for this Dallas team. So yeah, that is pretty much the final score of this game, as unfortunately Montreal, they weren't able to get all 3 points in this game. But I think Montreal will be happy, the fact that at least they walk out with a point in this game. Although I was kind of surprised that they played their strongest starting 11 in this game, because knowing the fact that they have to play that CCL game against Olympia during the middle of the week and have to travel down to Honduras for this game, you would think that Thierry Henry was probably going to be maybe starting a mix of B team and leaving some of his starters out of this game. But no, they played their strongest starting 11, and they were maybe hoping to get something out of this. They did get something out of this, but unfortunately they weren't able to get all 3 points out of this game. Shots in this game, 17 shots compared to 7 that Montreal has. 5 shots on goal compared to 2 that Montreal has. 5 shots off target compared to 2 that Montreal has. 7 shots that was blocked compared to 3 that Montreal has. And possession-wise, 59% possession compared to 41% possession. And, you know, for Dallas, I know it's kind of frustrated the fact that they drop points at home, but at the same time, they'll be happy the fact that they were able to come back late, and especially scoring 2 goals in the last 7 minutes to able to come back and salvage a point. But yeah, moving on in the next match. Boy, you talk about a match that literally just turn a script in a blink of an eye. This was exactly that match where you thought that one team that basically dominated throughout the game that potentially could be able to get their first ever victory in MLS history, and then all of a sudden it just went completely wrong, and that they started to just collapse during this point. But for Miami, they actually got off to a great start in this game. And 2 minutes into this game, Pizarro scores the first ever goal for Miami in their MLS history from Morgan and Robinson. And just like that, Miami was up 1-0 in this game. And they continued to push on to look for that second goal after they got that quick 1-0 lead. And by the way, I was unfortunate to not being able to see the first ever goal for Inter Miami because I was still watching this game. This game actually started about a couple of minutes after before this one was actually concluded. So by the time I was able to check out this match, I was able to watch the first ever goal that Inter Miami scored in their franchise history. But the good news is the beauty of Twitter and the beauty of MLS Soccer Twitter was able to post the tweet of the first ever goal that Inter Miami scores. And yeah, even though it was just a tap in from Pizarro, I think this is going to be a memorable goal for Miami to remember for a very long time in their franchise history. But as I said, Miami, they really were off to a great start, and DC, boy oh boy, they looked like they were sleeping out of the gate, and that their defense was just absolutely atrocious, and that I thought Miami could have really maybe got 2 or 3 goals with the way that they were playing this DC team that just looked very uninterested. But that's when things started to go terribly wrong for them, and that slowly for Miami, they were kind of like at a high moment in the beginning of the game, but it came crashing down very, very slowly and gradually very quickly in the second half. The slow part was in the 3rd minute of stoppage time, the first half. Robbie Robinson comes off after just a nasty knee injury. It looks like his feet was unfortunately caught on Steven Birnbaum, and that it seemed like his feet probably either snapped because of the fact that his feet kind of got caught under Birnbaum, or the fact that it might be an ACL tear. But either way, let's just hope it's not a serious injury, and that you just hate to see a young kid like Robbie Robinson, starting only his 2nd game in his MLS career, have to suffer an injury that could potentially be a season-ending injury. And in the second half, as I said, things get gradually go bad for Miami, but this is when it just goes terribly wrong for them, and that they really started to collapse at this point. But before that, Morgan, he scored the second goal for Miami, and it looks like Miami was up 2-0 in that game, and you probably think, what collapse? But it was disallowed. And the reason why it was disallowed is because when you go back about 30 seconds before the development of the play, DC actually had a chance, but Roman Torres actually handballed it, and he clearly intentionally handballed this one, and also got sent off because of a denial of goal score opportunity, and that when Torres handballed that one, he was the last defender. And when that happens, when you intentionally put your hand on the ball and you're the last defender, it is 100% a sending off, and that of course was the case as Roman Torres was giving his marching orders. And then just 2 minutes after Roman Torres was giving his marching order, Assad would score on a penalty, and what happened here was Victor Uriola high-boot one of the Inter Miami, or not one of the Inter Miami, but one of the DC United player, which was clearly a penalty. And as I said, Yamil Assad was able to put away to tie the game up at 1 apiece. And just as things couldn't get bad and that the collapse couldn't get even worse, it did. 2 minutes later, Frederick Briand scored a rare goal to give DC United a 2-1 lead. And in a span of just 10 minutes, where Inter Miami looked like they were up 2-0 in the game and looked like they were going to get their first ever MLS victory in their franchise history, now all of a sudden find themselves at 2-1 down. And all I can say to that for Miami is, welcome to MLS. This is another thing that tends to happen when you basically have a VAR call that goes against you, and that things can change just like that. And I hope they probably would learn for that, because this won't be the last time that they, of course, suffer some VAR decision that unfortunately goes against them. Now, despite the fact that the games was turned on its head and Miami just suffer a massive collapse during those 10 minutes, they eventually started to recover and started to play much better. And I thought for the last 30 minutes of this game, DC, I was kind of surprised the fact that they weren't thinking about going for a third goal. Or at least I thought that they were thinking about getting that third goal, but the problem is they just could not get on the counterattack, or any time when they tried to go on the counterattack, and the final product of that counterattack was just not there, which allows Miami's chance to hang into this game. And I thought the longer this one would stay at 2-1, I thought the more chances that Miami would have able to tie the game up. But unfortunately, that was not the case, as DC in the end hangs on to win 2-1 in this game. Shots in this game, 8 shots compared to 15 that Miami has. 3 shots on goal compared to 5 that Miami has. 2 shots off target compared to 8 that Miami has. And 3 shots that was blocked compared to 2 that Miami has. And possession-wise, 55% possession compared to 45% possession. And, you know, for Miami, again, I know it's a frustrating loss where for 10 minutes they just completely lost it, and that eventually they of course wasn't able to recover that 10-minute period where they just completely switched off. But this is just something that they're going to have to continue to learn, and some things that I think will definitely help them in the future, knowing that, you know, when there's a VAR call that goes against you, sometimes, you know, you need to just take a deep breath and think that, you know, it is what it is. We got to keep moving. We have to lead. Let's just protect at all costs instead of just completely collapsing. And as for DC, yeah, you know, it's a good 3 points for them, but there's definitely still some concern in terms of this attack and this defense, because, you know, Miami is a team that I think they're still missing that goal scored, and especially now Robinson could potentially be out for an extensive time. They really don't have a natural striker anymore. And I just think that, you know, with all this rumor of them potentially getting that crucial breakout star number 9 player up front, I feel like they, instead of waiting maybe till the summer transfer window, they probably should do it right now, because, you know, they just don't have a goal scored on this team. And as long as if they don't have a goal scored in this team, this is going to be some of the resort that you're going to see with Miami, and that they have a good midfield and they do have a good defense, but the final product is just not there. And that it almost kind of reminds me of the other expansion team, Nashville, that is also dealing with this same issue, where they just don't have a goal scored and final product to push them over the hill. But moving on, in terms of the next match, or actually not moving on, I have to now switch the boards and look at the next 4 games that happen on Saturday. But yeah, next up on the board is TFC with a 1-0 win over NYCFC. Now, in the first half and 10 minutes into the game, Achara, who was making his debut for TFC, almost got a dream debut for him after he, of course, scored a goal. But unfortunately, it was disallowed because of offside, and I believe they actually reviewed it, and it looked like he was just a foot offside when he scored that tap in. So the game stays at 0-0. Now in the 18th minute, Keaton Parks was robbed by Westberg to potentially give NYCFC a 1-0 lead. And then in the 27th minute, there was a video review to see whether or not if there was a penalty given to TFC. And what happened in this play was it looked like James Sands brought down Justin Morrow, but when they looked at the VAR, they said that there was no penalty. And I like how the announcer basically says that it was clearly a penalty, but when VAR was kind of overturned, they were a little bit surprised by that. I mean, when you look at the replay and the fact that it seemed like yes, there was definitely contact between Morrow's and Sands, but it was more of Morrow's kind of stick his right knee out of James Sands to kind of draw that foul. And I know usually attackers tend to like to do that so that they, of course, can draw a foul. But if you make it so obvious, like what Justin Morrow did, that kind of instigate that foul, yeah, you are probably not going to win it. And that in this video replay, it was clearly shown that he kind of made intentionally make that contact so that he can, of course, win a penalty. And therefore, that's why there was no penalty given in this situation. Now, in the 40th minute, TFC almost got the opening goal again when Gallardo unfortunately was denied by the post. And then for the next couple of minutes, they had a furious of chances to potentially get the opening goal. But Sean Johnson comes up a couple of times. And I thought both goalkeepers in this game played very well. I thought Sean Johnson and Quentin Westberg multiple time robbing a couple of potential goal scoring chances by both of these teams. And in the second half, you know, both teams, of course, have chances, but as I mentioned, both goalkeeper coming up some big save to keep this one at 0-0 until the 81st minute, where Achara, who was denied in the 10th minute of his first goal and getting a goal on his debut, wasn't going to be denied in this situation as he scores in the 81st minute to give TFC a 1-0 lead, and that turns out to be the winner of the game. And you know, talk about a feel-good story. Achara, who is making his debut, not only was able to get his dream debut goal, but also get that dream debut goal as turns out to be the winner of this matchup. Shots in this game, TFC had 17 shots compared to 11 that NYCFC had. 9 shots on goal compared to 3 that NYCFC had. 5 shots off target compared to 3 that NYCFC had. 3 shots out was blocked compared to 5 that NYCFC had. And possession-wise, 48% possession compared to 52% possession. And for Toronto, obviously it's a good bounce back after that frustrating draw against the Quakes where they blew a 2-0 lead. And as for NYCFC, you know, they can't really see this as kind of a negative result because they need to move on right now from a couple of days when they are going to be facing a daunting task in the CCL quarterfinal against Tigres. Yeah, moving on. So Atlanta's first game without Joseph Martinez ends up to be a 2-1 win against FC Cincinnati. And in the first half, 17 minutes into this game, Barco was absolutely robbed by Richie after a sensational pass from Pity Martinez. And it was kind of unfortunate the fact that this was not a goal because this was a lovely pass for Pity Martinez to able to find Barco after he played an over-the-top ball from about 30 yards out. But unfortunately, Barco wasn't able to put it away because Spencer Richie made an amazing save to keep this one at 0-0. Now, 3 minutes later, this game is no longer 0-0 because Barco, who earlier was denied by Richie, wasn't going to be denied this time. And guess who he got the assist from in terms of this goal? That's right, it's Pity Martinez, who once again made a sensational pass to Barco to give Atlanta a 1-0 lead. And it's got to be great if you're an Atlanta United fan seeing both of these guys contribute in terms of the goal scoring and assist, because they really need both of these guys to contribute, especially now that Joseph Martinez is going to be out for the rest of the season potentially, and that these are really going to be the two guys that I think could really carry this team if they want to not only make it to the playoffs, but maybe have some aspiration in terms of competing for MLS Cup. Now, despite the fact that Atlanta went up 1-0 in this game, I thought FC Cincinnati responded well and that they started to get back into this game and had some chances. Their best chance came right on the stroke of halftime when Alan Cruz almost tapped it in for the equalizer. But as we head to halftime, Atlanta has the 1-0 lead. And as we head into the second half, 10 minutes into it, Atlanta doubles their lead when Emerson Hyman scores from Barco and Pity Martinez. So there's Barco and Pity Martinez once again getting on the score sheet to make it 2-0 in favor of Atlanta. And I thought even during that goal when Hyman scored it, I thought Spencer Richie probably could have done a little bit better in terms of that situation. Not because of the fact that he probably should have covered that front post and maybe saved that shot that Hyman shoot it from a tight angle, but I feel like his position wasn't very well, and that because of the fact that he didn't get into a good position to cover that left side of the post. That, of course, is what happened when Hyman was able to slot that one home in the near post, despite the fact that he had a very tight angle to do that. Now, Atlanta, despite the fact that they were up 2-0, once again, FC Cincinnati did a good job in terms of responding after conceding a goal, and eventually they would make this game on again when Yura Kubo scores his first ever goal from Riganton. And I said that this was potentially a goal of the week because, you know, this was just a lovely hit from Kubo, and Brad Guzan, he completely got wrong-footed in this situation, and that I'm not going to fault him for getting wrong-footed, because with the way that Kubo hits that one and how it just knuckled into the right side of the net, yeah, that is always going to be tough for goalkeeper to deal with. And even if I think Guzan dives the right way, I don't know if he was going to get to that, because that one was hit with pace and hit with a lot of knuckling kind of ball there. But yeah, FC Cincinnati was able to get one back, and it was a one-goal game. They decided to push to try to get the tying goal, but unfortunately they couldn't get it, as Atlanta was able to hang on in this game and win 2-1 against FC Cincinnati. And in terms of the shots in this game, 8 shots compared to 14 that FC Cincinnati has, 4 shots on goal compared to 4 that FC Cincinnati has, 4 shots off target compared to 5 that FC Cincinnati has, no shots that was blocked compared to 5 that FC Cincinnati has, and possession-wise, 58% possession compared to 40% possession. And, you know, for Atlanta, so far, they're off to a great start in their first game without Joseph Martinez. But the real test is going to be doing this midweek game when they play against the best team right now in Liga MX, known as Club America. And as for FC Cincinnati, I mean, you know, again, it's another game where I thought the good thing is at least they show some fight in this game, but it's get to a point where, you know, as much as you put up fights in these games, if you don't have anything to show for at the end of the game, it's still going to be a very disappointing result. But yeah, next up is the game that I mentioned in the intro, which is the Blues Not Derby. And not only the fact that this derby was not even close, but this was right on borderline assault that Minnesota commit to the Quakes in front of the Quakes faithful. I mean, this was just a total embarrassing display that the Quakes play at home in this game, and that this was probably one of the most embarrassing home displays that they actually done. Probably right on point of last year when they lost to LAFC 5-0, although I wasn't actually at that game, so I would say that this is probably the most embarrassing performance I've ever seen when I went to watch the Quakes at the stadium. And as for Minnesota, you know, this has got to be one of the best road performances I've seen the Loons play, and probably right up there to last year when they were able to win 2-0 against LAFC at Bank of California Stadium. Now, the embarrassing display by the Quakes all started in the 13th minute when former Quakes player Ike Opara scores from Jan Gregush. I wrote poor marking for the Quakes because it was very poor marking for the Quakes on that corner, letting Opara out-jump everybody. And this won't be the last time you will hear me talking about how the Quakes were very bad in terms of defending set pieces or defending ball that is coming into the box, and that was one of the big reasons why they got absolutely humiliated in this game. Now, 6 minutes later, they did get the equalizer, and they did actually got a penalty after Chase Gasper brought down Tommy Thompson. Originally, when I saw it in real time, I thought that was outside the box, and I was kind of surprised VAR overturned that. But when I look on the replay, yeah, Chase Gasper clearly brought down Tommy Thompson in the box, and that, for once, VAR was actually in favor of us and give us a penalty, which, as I said, Eriksson was able to bury it away, and the game was all tied up at 1 apiece. But the game wouldn't be tied for long, because 7 minutes later, Jan Gregush would take the lead for Minnesota as he scored from Almeria. And I wrote goal of the week with a question mark, because this was such an amazing goal that Jan Gregush scored. And it was so amazing that originally I couldn't believe that was Jan Gregush that actually scored the goal. But because usually he is a guy that is more of a creative player for this Loons team, but I didn't know he can score bangers like what Hassani Dotson usually does. But, you know, I'll take it. They, of course, get the lead back after they concede a goal just 6 minutes before. And then 6 minutes later, they would score again, and this time Almeria, who of course assists the last goal, would get on the score sheet as he scored from Kevin Molino. I think the only thing that is going to be a little bit disappointing about this performance for the Loons is the fact that Molino, he did went out with an injury, and I heard there was a report it's a hamstring injury, which means that he could be out for 2 to 3 weeks, and that's going to be interesting to see how Adrian Heath would deal with that, and that he's going to have to do some shuffle in terms of the attack, because Molino so far in this season, he has been very, very decent. But, you know, this goal that the Quakes concede, guess how they concede this goal? You guessed it, it is from a ball coming over the top where they let Maria wide open in the box. And anytime when you leave a striker wide open in the box, yeah, you're basically going to concede. And that is exactly what happened as Minnesota has a 3-1 lead. Now, as we head to the end of halftime, I thought, you know, if the Quakes can just get to halftime at 3-1 and try, and Almeida will really just kind of fire up his team to try to get them reset heading into the second half, maybe they could potentially come back from this. Instead, that's exactly not what happened, because right as we were about to head to the halftime, or right as when the halftime whistle was blown, the Quakes can give up a penalty. And what happened here was Cashier basically arm wrestle Opara, well, not arm wrestle, but kind of more like rugby tackle Ike Opara in the box to give away a penalty. And the funny thing is, I was actually sitting next to this Quakes fans that clearly was a homer, and that he tends to have something against the referee in this game. And throughout the game, he was, every bad call that the Quakes got, he would just complain to the referee. But after this situation, and I kind of talked to him a couple of times, he keep mentioning the fact that this was not a penalty, and that it was just like last week when the Quakes, of course, was hard done by a soft penalties that probably shouldn't have called. But for me, when I look on the replay, and when I just even look in real time, I feel like that was clearly a penalty, because anytime when you decide to try to rugby tackle someone in the box, it's always going to be a penalty. But it's just funny the fact that he, throughout the entire game, he was just so obsessed with the call. He kept kind of talked about it, and you know, I didn't really try to kind of fight or argue with the fact that, you know, it was the right call, because I knew he wasn't gonna budge with the way that he was just so obsessed with it. But either way, Minnesota, of course, got that penalty. Amaria steps up to potentially get his second goal of the game. Unfortunately, he missed it, but Robin Le was in the right place at the right time to clean up that mess. And the Loons now have a 4-1 lead as we head to the halftime whistle. And I think this is probably the first time I've ever seen the Quakes in person where they give up 4 goals. And yeah, I mean, when I saw that, I knew that this game was over, and that I wouldn't blame some Quakes fan decided to leave the game at that point, which, by the way, this was a very cold and rainy night, and there wasn't really a lot of people in the stadium. A lot of people might say, well, it's because of the coronavirus situation, which, yeah, it was the case. A lot of people stay away because of the fear of the coronavirus, but it was also just pouring down in rain, and you know, I feel for Quakes fans just sitting in the rain looking all miserable, because that was just an absolute outrageously embarrassing performance they played in the first half. And I'm also glad that I didn't make a match vlog about this, because if I would have made a match vlog about this at halftime, I would have gone on a tirade that I think would be heard in the entire stadium, because of how angry I was with how the Quakes play in the first half. Now, in the second half, Vako did scores to give the Quakes a little bit of life, but I still feel like there was just no way that the Loons was going to blow a 4-1 lead at halftime, and a lot still needs to happen if the Quakes can come back into this game. And the Loons make sure that there was no coming back for the Quakes, because in the 71st minute, Ike Opara scores from Jan Gregish, and guess how Opara scored this goal? A, he scored an absolute banger to give Minnesota the 5-2 lead. B, he scored a tap-in to give Minnesota a 5-2 lead. Or C, he basically outjumped a Quakes player and scored on a header to make a 5-2 lead. If you guess C, you are right. And once again, the Quakes were just being lollygagging in terms of defending this set piece, and because of that, they concede another goal, and that would be the final score of this game, as Minnesota absolutely ran riot at the Quakes Stadium and beat the Quakes 5-2 in this game. Now, in terms of shots in this game, The Quakes actually had more shots than Minnesota in this game. They had 20 shots compared to 17 that the Loons had. 6 shots on goal compared to 10 that the Loons had. 8 shots off target compared to 3 that the Loons had. 6 shot that was blocked compared to 4 that the Loons had. And possession-wise, 62% possession compared to 38% possession. But ultimately, the scoreline was really the difference in this game. And that, you know, for the Quakes, I know I shouldn't really panic about this team because, you know, we're only 2 games into the season, and I know these first 2 games hasn't been very good, and that, you know, I feel like a lot of people is going to quickly panic and say that we're probably not going to have something similar to what we saw in 2018, but here's the thing. It's only 2 games, and I hope Almeida, after this game, can finally end this experiment of putting Houston on the wing and actually put in your best goal scorer, Wando, starting in game, and also putting your best defender, Youngworth, in game, and drop Cassia, because I just have no idea what was Almeida thinking putting that starting 11 in this game. Like, last week when they play against TFC, I didn't like the starting 11, and that starting 11 didn't play very well, and I thought for sure Almeida probably saw that, and he would decide to change it up. And yet, he didn't, and he was made to pay. So I hope this time he understand that it doesn't work and that he just needs to pretty much use common sense and just put your best goal scorer and defender into this team. But yeah, hopefully things are going to get better. It doesn't get any easier for the Quakes because the next game they play against the Union on the road, which means that most likely could be a automatic loss for the Quakes because they tend to never do well on the road, and especially against an Eastern Conference team. But as for the Loons, you know, last week I tried my best to contain my excitement of this team and saying that this could be a very special year for the Loons. And after this performance, it's even harder now to contain the excitement because the way that the attack play in this game was just so sexy. And that if they can continue to play like this, no doubt that this team is going to be an MLS Cup contender. But the key word is if, because, you know, we've seen before where teams can get off to a great start and that you think that they have MLS Cup aspiration, and then things can take a turn to the worst in the middle of the season, whether it's injury or just a poor form. So right now, Minnesota is definitely come out of the gate strong, but they need to keep doing this if they want to really have aspiration of making, potentially competing for MLS Cup. But moving on, in terms of the next match, as I kind of spent a lot of time talking about this game, is another matchup that was not even close. And another team that got humiliated this weekend is the Houston Dynamo. Although, unlike this one that I wasn't expecting, the fact that the Quakes was just going to get run out of the park against Minnesota, I was kind of expecting a little bit with the Dynamo, knowing the fact that this was a road game for the Dynamo, and it seemed like SKC had a lot to prove heading into this season. In the first half, 16 minutes in, Polito scores from Kyrie Shelton and Gadi Kinda, and to add insult to injury in terms of the Quakes losing 5-2 to Minnesota, Polito scored. And I'm going to mention this almost every time whenever Polito scored because this was a guy that we were in the driving seat of getting him, and it looked like we were going to get him at the last minute. SKC basically came in and completely stole this deal away from the Quakes, and that, yeah, I'm telling, I mean, as much as I am trying my best to kind of tell you guys that I don't regret in terms of the fact that the Quakes didn't get Polito, it's getting much harder now, the fact that he started to produce SKC, and that this might be another example of one that got away from the Quakes. Then 10 minutes later, Espinoza would double that lead to make it 2-0 in favor of SKC. Russell almost made it 3-0 after he chipped Marriage. Marriage made a bit of a miscue of a pass, which Russell was able to get it, and he almost chipped Marriage from about 40 yards out, and that would have been definitely a good candidate for goal of the week. Now, in the second half, Houston did start well early. Memo Rodriguez's shot was denied by Melia, and the game, of course, stays at 2-0. But that was really the only good spell that the Dynamo has, because in the 65th minute, Gadi Kinda scored his second goal from Polito and Russell to make it 3-0. And then in the 77th minute, Kyrie Shelton scored his first goal ever since coming back from SKC and coming back with this team on his second stint to make it 4-0 in favor of SKC. And that's how this game finished, as SKC absolutely dominated Houston in this game. And the shots in this game, 17 shots compared to 9 that Houston had, 7 shots on goal compared to 1 that the Dynamo has, 4 shots off target compared to 5 that the Dynamo has, 6 shots that was blocked compared to 3 that the Dynamo has. And possession-wise, 56% possession compared to 44% possession. And as I said, for SKC, it feels like they have a chip on their shoulder heading into this season, because these first 2 games they have performed very, very well. Although I will say this, the first 2 games when they're facing these first 2 opponents are opponents that I feel like they're probably going to be near the bottom of the Western Conference, and that they haven't really been tested yet. Next week is going to be a big test for them, because they're going to be going on the road to play against Atlanta United. And yes, Atlanta is not going to have Joseph Martinez for the rest of the season, but still, anytime when you have to play Atlanta and you have to play them on the road, it is always going to be a very tough task. So next week, I think for SKC, it could be really a measuring stick of how good they could be, and that have this team totally recover after just a surprising last season where they didn't make it to the playoffs. And as for the Dynamo, yeah, this was not good. And if this is going to be something that they're gonna showcase on the road, this could be another long year for the Dynamo. And that I just feel like they just need to tear this whole thing down. Like, I just don't understand why this offseason they decided to add some pieces thinking that they could be competitive, when all signs is pointing that they just need to rebuild, especially that now they got a new head coach under Tab Ramos, and that we'll see whether or not if that is going to be something they'll do in the future. But that being said, I'm going to be switching boards for the last time to look at the last 3 games from the Saturday action. But yeah, next up is the Rapids. So for the second week in a row, the Rapids score a late goal to win the game, and they did it in the most classic Rapids fashion as possible, which is scoring on the set piece. Now, in the first half, I thought both teams had chances to potentially score their first goal, but both teams was kind of lacking in terms of their finishing, and we had to halftime scoreless. Now, in the second half, we eventually did get our first goal, and it came in the 63rd minute when Jonas Namely, the new DP signing from the Rapids, scores his first ever goal to give the Rapids a 1-0 lead from Rosenberry. And I wrote goal of the week with a question mark, because what a goal this was from Namely, and what a way to introduce yourself to the Rapids faithful by scoring an absolute banger from about 30 yards out. So at that point, the Rapids had a 1-0 lead, but Orlando City would equalize in the 82nd minute when Chris Mueller scores from Pereira and Uso. And, you know, Mueller, right near the end of his goal-scoring celebration, he did the classic shushing to the home fans, which is something that you definitely see players that might be playing as the away team, and they love to kind of taunt the home fans with the shushing kind of moments. But there are times when you try to do that, it does come back to bite you in the ass. And for Orlando City in this case, and also in Chris Mueller, yeah, it came back to bite them in the ass, because 8 minutes later, Drew Moore scores his first ever goal on his second stint with the Rapids from Jack Price. And as I said before, this was from a set piece. This was from a lovely delivery from the king of set piece known as Jack Price to give it to Drew Moore, who rise above everybody to hit that one in. And just like that, the Rapids gets the 2-1 lead, and they would hold on to win this one 2-1. And that, again, for the second week in a row, they able to score a late winner to basically get all 3 points in this game. Shots in this game, the Rapids had 12 shots compared to 14 that Orlando City has. Both teams had 5 shots on goal, 6 shots off target compared to 7 that Orlando City has. 1 shot that was blocked compared to 2 that Orlando City has. And possession-wise, 55% possession compared to 45% possession that Orlando City has. And, you know, for the Rapids, what a great start it is to the 2020 season. And that this is exactly what they needed heading into this new season after what happened last year, where it took them forever to get their first couple of wins. And as for Orlando City, you know, I feel like they were kind of a little bit hard done in this game, because I feel like they probably could have deserved a point out of this game, but the inability to finish once again haunt them in this game, and giving up a late goal was another reason why it haunted them in this game, and they weren't able to walk out of Colorado with anything. But moving on, in terms of the next match, now one team that did walk out with something was the Columbus Crew on the road. So they walk out of CenturyLink Field and walk out of Seattle with a point after they drew 1-1 against the Seattle Sounders. Now, the announced attendance of this game was 33,080, which was the lowest attendance that Seattle has ever since their first year into the league. And obviously, the reason why there wasn't a lot of people attending this game is the whole coronavirus situation, and that, you know, Seattle has even said to their fans that, you know, if you are a person that might have health issue, or you're kind of like an elderly person, don't attend this game. And it seemed like that would maybe play in a factor of why the attendance was very low. Like, when I watch on TV, yeah, I saw a lot of empty seats at CenturyLink Field, which was definitely very, very uncommon. And even the ECS supporter section, there was a couple of empty seats there, which is definitely very rare because those supporter section are usually full, but in this case it wasn't that kind of case. And that, I feel like if you look on TV, probably there wasn't really 33,000. I mean, this was the pay attendance. I bet there was a ton of no-shows, and that in reality probably only like 20,000 people attend this game, which is still a lot if you compare it to other MLS teams, but definitely in terms of Seattle situation, that is definitely not a lot of people attending the game. Now, the Sounders had a bunch of chances in the first half, but a lot of those were not on target, and that just a double whammy for the Sounders in terms of frustration, because not only the fact that you have a bunch of chances to take the early lead, but none of them actually went on target, and none of them really, like, you basically did not make the opposition goalkeeper work whatsoever with the way that you had a bunch of chances but weren't able to hit on frame. And then in the 33rd minute, Jarzi Zardes scores from Diaz and Artura, and I thought this was completely against the run of play, because I thought Seattle would look like the most likely to score the opening goal, but out of nowhere, Columbus got that goal, and they leads it 1-0 heading into halftime. Now, in the second half, for the second week in a row, Seattle was denied a goal because of an offside, and this time it was Miguel Ibarra who looked like he scored his first ever goal for the Seattle Sounders, but unfortunately it was disallowed because he was just an inch offside. And then in the 76th minute, there was a penalty call against Columbus when Affle basically handball from a Nuhu cross. Like, I have no idea why Harrison Affle decided to handball there. Like, it wasn't like Nuhu was even in a dangerous area, and the cross that he was putting in, you know, we don't know whether or not if that was actually a good cross or not. So there was really no need for him to handball there, and Seattle, of course, will take that, and they got a penalty. Now, on this penalty sequence, there was something that usually don't happen very often, which is there is a retake of penalty after the goalkeeper, of course, comes off his lines. And what happened is, on the first try, Eloy Room, of course, saved the penalty, but the referee says that he came off his lines, and I do agree, because when you look on the replay, it looked like he was at least a yard or two off his lines. And then on the second attempt, which Rui Diaz was able to bury it to tie the game for Seattle, I thought Eloy Room did the same thing, where he was at least a yard or two off his line. And if Rui Diaz actually missed that penalty, I think we would have gone to another retake, and this would be one of the rarest situations where you see free penalty kick try that one team is able to get, because of the fact that the goalkeeper come off his lines twice in that situation. Now, for the latter part of the game, I thought both teams had chances to score a winner. I mean, up until that point, I thought Seattle deserved the equalizer because they had a ton of chances. But Columbus, they really looked like they were trying to get the late winner and trying to steal 3 points away from Seattle. And they almost did it in the last second of the game when Zella Ryan almost scored a winner on a free kick. But Stephen Fry comes up big with a save. And that is the final score of this game, as the Sounders and Columbus ends in a 1-1 draw. And in terms of shots in this game, by far Seattle has more with 17 shots compared to 5 that Columbus had. But if you look at the shots on goal, only 3 for Seattle in this game compared to also 3 for Columbus. So Seattle had a lot of shots in this game, but as I said here, they had a lot of shots, but not a lot of them is on target, and that has to be very infuriating if you're a Sounders fan, knowing the fact that they had a lot of chances, but not a lot of them even hit on frame. 8 shots exactly was off target compared to 2 that Columbus had. Both teams had 6 shots that was blocked. And possession-wise, 56% possession compared to 44% possession that Columbus had. And, you know, for Columbus, they'll definitely take this point, consider it's not very often you see a away team are able to go to CenturyLink and get a point. And for Seattle, as I said, it's a very frustrating resort with the way that they look like for majority of the game being the better team, but they can only walk out of this game with just a point. But now moving on into the final game of this weekend, and that of course is the Galaxy. So, you know, the Quakes, they suffer an embarrassing 5-2 loss at home, and up until that point I thought the Quakes suffered probably the most humiliating loss all this week so far. Well, the Galaxy basically just told the Quakes, yeah, I like that you of course suffer a 5-2 loss against Minnesota, but we can do one better and pretty much just hold our beer, as we are going to get embarrassed for the 2nd year in a row by the Vancouver Whitecaps. And that is exactly what happened here, as the Whitecaps with a 1-0 win against the Galaxy. And that in the first half, I thought the Galaxy had chances to potentially get the first goal, and probably the best chance wasn't actually them creating something, but more of what in the world was Maxime Crépeau thinking when he decided to completely comes off his lines after his own defender actually knocked the ball into Sasha Kljestan, and then Kljestan almost chipped Crépeau from about 40 yards out. And, you know, I mean, that was just, I have no idea why was Crépeau in that position, and that maybe I think that was just a little bit miscommunication between Crépeau and his defender. But even then, I would fault Crépeau more on that, because in that situation, defenders usually have the rights there first to trying to get to the ball first. Now, in the second half, there was a bit of a scramble in the box that almost resulted on the first goal that the Galaxy had. But overall, you know, when I look at how the Galaxy play in this game, it really kind of reminds me of the last game, where they just looked like they were out of ideas. Like, the attack was just very slow. The midfield provide no creativity whatsoever, and they crossed the ball so many times. And I said last week that, you know, going forward on the attack, you cannot cross the ball like 27 different times as they did in this game and hope that maybe one of their player and your main goal scorer Chicharito is going to put one away, because Chicharito is not going to be a guy where if you can just dink the ball into the box, he can of course head in. He is not Zlatan Ibrahimovic. What he really needs to do is provide service on the ground, and provide him service in the perfect space where he can basically put the ball into the back of the net. That's what his specialty is too. So I just don't understand, why are they still thinking about crossing? And most of these cross wasn't even that good too. I mean, Vancouver, you know, despite the fact that they were kind of sitting back for majority of the game, they look very comfortable sitting at the back. And heck, even I think the worst team in the league, or the worst defensive team, could actually sit back decently against this Galaxy attack, because this Galaxy attack looked completely toothless in this game. And ultimately, we did have the opening goal of this game, but it didn't come from the Galaxy. It came from Vancouver, when Tosan Ricketts scores from Adnan and Raposo to give Vancouver a 1-0 lead. And just as things can't get worse for the Galaxy, seconds after they concede the opening goal to the Whitecaps, Joe Corona gets his second yellow and was dismissed, and the Galaxy was down to 10 men for the remaining of the game. Now, in the 88th minute, Cavallini had a chance to put this game to bed and give Vancouver a second goal to pretty much kill this game off, but unfortunately he missed a penalty, which Bingham of course denies him. But fortunately for Vancouver, that didn't come back to haunt them because, as I said, the Galaxy throughout this game, they was just absolute toothless and absolute out of idea going forward. And in the end, the Whitecaps with a 1-0 win against the Galaxy. And in terms of shots in this game, both teams had 12 shots in this game, but look at that. 1 shot on goal by the Galaxy. And Chicharito in this game, I don't think he even touched the ball in this game. And there was moments of this game where I was thinking, where in the world is Chicharito? Is he even in this game? Because of the way that he was barely involved in the play, and that the announcer barely even talked about him. I mean, I was just absolutely shocked of how bad the Galaxy attack was. Although at the same time, I wasn't kind of shocked because they did the same thing to Houston in the last game, and they basically did it again in this game against the Whitecaps. The Whitecaps themselves had 4 shots on goal, 6 shots off target compared to 4 that the Whitecaps had, 5 shots that was blocked compared to 4 that the Whitecaps had, and possession-wise, 54% possession compared to 47% Vancouver has. And that, you know, for the Galaxy, if something does not change in terms of this attack, yeah, this could be a long season for the Galaxy. And, you know, for Chicharito, I know he's going to be criticized a ton with the way that he is off to a bad start with the Galaxy, but I don't think the blame should be toward him, but more toward this midfield and this attack, which is just completely non-existent throughout these first 2 games. And that, you know, at the same time, I'd also want to credit Vancouver, where they defended very well in this game, and they were able to pick their moments when they did. But it was also a lot to do with the Galaxy just being toothless on the attack, and that they just cannot continue this, because if they continue this, then there could definitely be some questions that's going to be asked in terms of the front office, and also, you know, Guillermo Barros Schelotto, he could also be in the hot seat too if he continued to see this Galaxy team having these kind of results, because clearly this is a team that shouldn't be coming off of the first 2 weeks with a lot of questions, but instead should be a team that maybe should be competing for the playoffs and thinking how they are going to actually maybe be an MLS contender. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of all these games that I have reviewed. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Later tonight, I of course will be reviewing the last 2 games and the Sunday games that is happening tomorrow. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.